Welcome to the analysis of paper 2 of the mock 3. So this is passage 1. This passage is about Dharavi and the work on Dharavi by Joseph Campana. There are two questions in this. This is the first one. With reference to the passage, the following inferences have been made. Joseph Campana has visited Dharavi. Dharavi is self-sufficient. In fact, if you look at the first inference, it is not correct because nowhere in the passage has there been reference to Joseph Campana visiting Dharavi while working on this project. The second statement could be misleading because there is this statement by Kalpana Sharma which says that you get a sense of vibrancy and self-sufficiency there. You might be mistaken to assume that this statement implies that there was self-sufficiency. There's just a sense of self-sufficiency, not that Dharavi itself was self-sufficient. So there's a subtle difference in what is implied here and what the passage says. Hence the appropriate answer is D and not B. This is the second question. Which of the following statements is incorrect according to the passage? When you read the four choices, C looks very obvious. There's nothing unique about Dharavi because this passage is saying everything about the uniqueness of Dharavi. Hence, this cannot be an incorrect statement. So this is the incorrect statement because when you look at the other three choices, Asia's largest slum is no longer Dharavi, is very clearly stated by Rashmi Bansal in her quote. Dharavi has been documented a lot. There have been so many references of earlier works on Dharavi. So A and B are obviously out. Dharavi, the city within, is not the first of its kind. So this is also a correct statement. So this cannot be our appropriate option. So C is the most appropriate among the four options. This passage talks about the importance of a regulator in the power sector to balance between the requirements of the consumer and the producers. There are two questions in this. First one is, according to the passage, why do critical sectors require strong and even-handed regulators? I think the key word in this is even-handed. The reason being, the sectors are critical and there has to be a good balance between the consumer and the producer. So that's where we talk about the even-handedness. So if you have got the sense of even-handedness, now if you look at all the four choices, you will see that choice C looks the most obvious. Choice A, there are a lot of regulatory issues, is a very neutral kind of a statement. Production companies are burdened by unanticipated price changes. That doesn't really talk about even-handedness. And the choice D, production companies are loss averse, that also looks completely irrelevant to the question that is being asked. So choice C is obviously the correct answer. The economics of Mundra project were affected because of additional import tax on coal used by the project. In fact, it was not the import tax. Indonesia actually imposed a imported tax on export. So it's not the import tax. So this obviously cannot be our answer. Expensive coal imports, obviously, this in conjunction with the point 3 of predetermined price of power in the project made the project unviable. Hence, you see the options 2 and 3 are the most appropriate. This passage is talking about the crisis of faith in the Indian democracy and how institutions are not living up to the expectations, and it's especially besides the instance of Parliament where it doesn't seem to have any rules and regulations. So the first question is, the Parliament of India cannot be correctly compared with wrestling due to which of the following. If you actually look at it, it's a fairly direct statement where in the last uh, two lines it says, in truth, the comparison would insult the sport of wrestling, which is governed by well laid out rules and regulations. So, in one sense, the author is saying that Parliament has no rules and regulations, and hence it would be an insult to the sport of wrestling to compare Parliament with wrestling. So, the appropriate answer among the different choices that we have here is lack of rules and regulations. If you actually look at all the other three options, they look absurd, completely out of sync with what is being asked. So you could have straight away marked A as an answer even without reading the passage. Now look at this question. Consider the following statements in reference to the passage. Doubt about the course, it should be course correction required. Lack of belief in continuity and rituals, lack of confidence in people's representatives. So though the third one looks a little close to the crisis of faith question, the real crisis of faith in the Indian democracy seems to be with the failure of institutions that are supposed to be guardians of democracy or be virtues of democracy. So it's not any of, definitely not 1 and 2. 3 seems a little okay, right? But though it is still not answering the key question. So the appropriate option in this is choice D. This passage is talking about how India ranks in its ability to let press have its freedom of expression. So this question number 7. Our society is becoming increasingly intolerant according to the passage. This intolerance is related to freedom to communicate one's opinions and views or ideas, lack of censorship. In fact, choice B looks exactly opposite to what we are talking about. Speech sponsoring political ambitions and purposes. This looks too narrow. So if you look at the broad theme of the passage, it is referring to option A, hence option A is the correct answer. In this, there are three statements which have reference to the passage. The first one says Nepal has more freedom of expression than India. Second one is ratings from international bodies cannot be trusted. The statement in the passage is they are suspect. Ratings are suspect because they have their own agendas. So suspect need not mean that they cannot be trusted. So you might be tempted to mark 2, but that's not true. US has more freedom of expression than India. It may be, but nowhere in the passage there seems to be any suggestion that US has more freedom of expression than India. Hence, given these options, the most appropriate one is only choice. The correct answer is A. Consider the following statements. A disease is an abnormal condition. Disease may affect us emotionally. Obesity is regarded as a disease. So among the different options that we have here, in the light of the above statement, which of the following is true? Obesity is an abnormal condition. This is definitely true because obesity is a disease and disease is an abnormal condition. Obesity only affects us emotionally. The word only is not something that is appropriate, so we cannot conclude from this. An abnormal condition will affect us emotionally. The question is, will it affect or may it may affect? So in the given statements it says diseases may affect us emotionally, so this cannot be correct. Similarly, an abnormal condition will not affect us emotionally is also incorrect, so we cannot conclude. So the only correct answer in this is choice A. So this is a reasoning question where we have 6 people: Robbie, Rangal, Shilva, Shekhar, Tani and Suman. 3 of them are males, 3 are females. 2 of them are professors, 2 accountants, 1 architect, 1 statistician. 2 of them wear white cap, 2 yellow, 1 red and 1 orange. 4 of them are married and the rest are unmarried. So basically they are 2 unmarried. It's also known that Rangal, Tani, Robbie, Shilva are the married couples. Tani, who is an architect and married to an accountant, wears white cap, which means Rangal also must be wearing white cap by virtue of the third condition. Both the members of each married couple wear caps of the same color. So if I look at the third condition, it also means that Robbie and Shilva must be wearing yellow caps. Members of each married couple belong to different professions. Robbie is a statistician. So let's include all of them and try to create. So we have Tani, Rangal. Let me clear this out. We have Tani. This is the couple. There's another couple that we have, which is Robbie and Shilva. And then we have two unmarried people, Suman and Shika. So let me try to organize all the information based on what we have read before. It says Tani is an architect. Tani is an architect and is married to the accountant. So obviously Rangal is the accountant, and they wear white caps. White, because both the married couple have to wear white caps. By the same logic, yellow caps are worn by Robbie and Shilva. Robbie is a statistician. So Robbie is a statistician. Suman is a professor. Suman is a prof. He's also male. Since there are 3 males and 3 females, Shika must necessarily mean Shika is the female. Members of each married couple belong to different professions. Right? Now we have taken care of an accountant, an architect, a professor, a statistician, which implies that Shika has to be either a professor or an accountant, in which case Shilva has to be alternately an accountant or a professor. Suman is wearing red cap, which implies Shika must wear orange cap. So we have kind of captured almost all the information that we need to sort out this problem. Given this, let's go back to the questions. Which of the following are definitely true? The statistician is the husband of the professor who wears white cap. The statistician happens to be Robbie, and we can't be sure whether Shilva is the professor or not. We know she has to be either an accountant or the professor. So statement 1 cannot be correct. Rangal is an accountant. Rangal is an accountant. We could very clearly derive this from the data that we have. So this is correct. A female accountant wears orange cap. Shika is the female accountant or female professor, and she is wearing orange cap. So the female we are referring to is Shika, but she can either be the professor or an accountant. So we can't be decisive about what is Shika's profession. Hence, we can't conclude that statement 3 is correct. So only 2 is the appropriate option. Shilva is a accountant, professor, statistician, or data is insufficient. If you look back at the data, we saw that Shilva can either be the accountant or the professor. So hence we can't be absolutely certain about Shilva's profession, and hence the appropriate answer is data is insufficient. If Robbie is the husband of one of the professors, then what is the profession of Shika? So there was a tie between Shika and Shilva. Shilva is Robbie's spouse, and if Shilva is the professor, which will mean that Shika will be the accountant. So these are the 3 correct options for questions 10, 11 and 12. In this question on DI, we have got 3 types of batteries, B1, B2, B3, being manufactured by Genpec Private Limited over the period 2006 to 2012. The first question, question 13, we are asked to find out what is the percentage increase in the sales of B1 in 2012 compared to that in 2006. So we have in 2006 B1 is 50, in 2012 B1 is 60, which implies the factor 60 by 50, which is equal to 1.2, is the sales in 2012 by sales in 2006. This factor is 1.2, implies there is a 20% increase in the sales. Hence the appropriate answer is 20. The next question is, in which year was the total sales volume of the three types of batteries put together the maximum? So I will use a visual inspection here because we have to check years 2007, 8, 10 and 12. So I need to check this figure 7, 8, 10 and 12. Now when I compare the values 7 and 8, right, there is almost they're almost very close to each other, though not exactly the same. They're very close to each other. So let me kind of skip that further now and then compare these values with that of 2010. Now 2010, if you look at the difference in numbers, this is almost same, this is marginally less, whereas this value here is significantly more. Hence, I can say with enough certainty that 2010 is highest among 2007, 8 and 10. So let's cut this out now. Now compare 2010 with 2012. There's a significant drop here. There's a slight increase here, and then there is a marginal increase here. So the drop here is almost close to from 120 to 90, 30, a drop of 30. And this is definitely not compensated by the increase here or the slight increase here. Hence 2010 has to be the correct answer. So without even calculating, I am saying with certainty that 2010 will be the appropriate answer for this question. Now the next question is, in which year did the total sales of the three types of batteries put together witness, should be witness and not witnessed, witness the maximum percentage increase over the previous year? We have to check the increase for 2007, which means I need to know 2006 figures, and we have to find out for 2007, we'll find out. Then we have to find out for 2009, which means I need to know 2008 and 2009 numbers. I need to know for 2010. I need to calculate it for 2012. So I need to, we in fact have to find out for all these values. Now this is 50 plus 60 plus 80, that is 190. Here it is 100 plus 70, 170 plus 65, 235. Here we have 95 plus 75, that is 170 plus 60, 230. Here I have 80 plus 75, 155 plus 40, 195. Then I have 120 plus 75, 195 plus 55, that is 250. Then we have 65 plus 60, 125 plus 35, that is 200. Sorry, 125 plus 35, that is 160. And then we have here 90 plus 85, that is 175 plus 60, that is 235. Now if I have to check for 2007, right, I am going to look at an expression 235 by 190. Now if I am looking for 2009, I am going to look at 2009. I don't even want to calculate because it's a drop. I don't want to waste my time doing that. 2010, if I want to find out, I will look at this factor 250 by 195. And 2012, if I want to look at it, I'm going to look at 235 by 160. Among these three values, this is obviously the highest. Hence, 2012 will be having the maximum percentage increase. In this question, we have a rectangular garden. Let's say this is 30 meters and this is 20 meters. And there are two roads in the middle which are perpendicular to each other and are having a width of 5 meters. So this is also 5 meters. You are asked to find out what is the area of the portion of the park which is not covered by the roads. So basically we are talking about this. Now imagine shifting this road this side and this road down. What will you get? You will get a figure like this. It's like you're just sliding the roads towards the end of the park. And so the unmarked or unshaded region is the roads, whereas the shaded region is the park not covered by the road. So I want to find out this area. So if this is 5, this must be 25. Similarly, by using the same logic, this has to be 5 because this is 15 and 5. So the area of the shaded region here is 25 into 15. So this is a simpler way of solving the question instead of doing it using multiple steps. In this question, we have got a number which is divided successively by 7 and 9. What do you mean by successive division by 7 and 9? If a number is divided first by 7, whatever is the quotient that you get, that quotient is divided by 9. This is called a successive division. So let me solve this question using two methods. First method is the quotient that I get by dividing by 7 must be of the form 9x plus 4 because this number when divided by 9 is leaving a remainder 4. So this was my quotient. So the original number n must be equal to 7 times this plus 4, rather plus 3. So we have this number n, which is the original number, which is sum 63, a multiple of 63 plus 28 plus 3, or 63x plus 31. Now if I am dividing this by 9, which means we are now reversing the sequence by which we are dividing. If I divide this by this number by 9, the quotient, the remainder is going to be 4, and the quotient is going to be 7x plus 3. And when we divide this by 7, the remainder is going to be 3. So the remainders in the order is going to get reversed. So intuitively, if you actually see, if I am dividing a number by two numbers 7 and 9 and the remainders are 3 and 4, when I reverse the division process, I obviously must get 4 and 3. The other option is to consider a number that kind of take any random number that gives you this value, right? And then look at it whether you can actually solve the question. So for example, I could have used this step and said, okay, let me look at 63 plus 91. 63 plus 31 or 94 and check out what would be the remainders. I would have anyway got the answers very similar to this. I don't think I really need to discuss this much. Veena was born 4 years after her parents' marriage. Her mother is 3 years younger than her father and 24 years older than Veena. So obviously when Veena was born, mom was 24. Hence she was married when she was 20. Dad would have been 23 when he was married. Hence the answer has to be 23. So there's not really much to think about in this question. This is an interesting question. A jar contains, there's a solution which is called alcohol to soda 7:5. You're taking out 9 liters from this and replacing it with replacement with 9 liters. And now what happens to the ratio? The ratio now becomes 7:9. You have to find out the quantity of alcohol in the original solution. In the original solution, if I assume if this volume is V, 7/12 of the original solution is alcohol. and then finally it is 7 by 16th of the origin of the volume is alcohol. So how did this reduce? This reduced when you removed 9 liters and you replaced it only with soda. You didn't do anything with for alcohol. So if I look at the second volume compared to the first volume, the second volume is 3/4 of the first volume. So what happened to how the 1/4 of the volume? 1/4 of the volume must have disappeared when 1/4 of the solution was removed. So the 9 liters is equal to 1/4 of volume of the container. Hence, volume of the container is equal to 36 liters. So this V is equal to 36 liters. If V is 36 liters, so initially you had 7 by 12th of V is alcohol, which is equal to 21 liters. Hence, the correct answer is none of the above. This question doesn't need any discussion really. So you have J, you go 4 letters back and then 16 letters forward. So essentially the 12th letter after J, which happens to be V. Hence the appropriate answer is. This is a question on probability. We have a box or a bag which has got 6 red, 7 black and 3 green caps. If 2 caps are randomly drawn from the bag, then what is the probability that both the caps are of red color? The number of ways of picking up 2 red from 6 red is 62 ways, and the number of ways of picking any 2 from 16 is 16C2. This ratio is nothing but 6 into 5 by 16 into 15. 1 into 2. So this anyway gets cancelled out. So you're left with 6 into 5 by 16 into 15, which is equal to 1 by 8. Hence the appropriate answer is a certain number of persons with a mule each was going to visit Amarnath temple. Half of the persons were sitting on their mules, which means 4 legs, whereas the rest were walking on foot with them. So there were 6. Some of them were 4-legged, and some of them were 6 legs. If the number of walking legs, including the mules, was 280, then how many mules were there? So half of them were sitting on the mules, and the rest were on foot, right? So if you actually look at 280, right, there is some number 6x which is if x is half of it, half of the total number, 6x plus 4x happens to be equal to 280, or x is equal to 28. So x is 28 is half the number of mules. So maybe some of you might have marked 28 as the answer, but the correct answer is 56. This question again is a if you look at the pattern that you see here, A goes to B, B goes to C, and then it's A, B, C are moving in clockwise, whereas P, Q, R are moving in anti-clockwise. So that is the basic gist of these figures. If you see, it's the same thing: clockwise, anti-clockwise, clockwise, anti-clockwise. So if I look at this figure, after the previous figure, since we have got only 3 in each rectangle, we must come back to the original figure of A, B, C and P, Q, R, and hence your appropriate option in this case will be option A. This passage deals with the concern that Finance Ministry and Reserve Bank of India seems to be having with the non-performing assets or non-performing loans of the different Indian banks. This is in spite of the reforms that have been carried out, 2. Enhance the autonomy of the banks. The government had redefined the definition of priority sector lending and given a little more leeway for the banks to operate the way they want. But in spite of this, the NPAs seem to be pretty high. This question says, why did the RBI's expression of concern surprise people? That is primarily because if you look at the passage here, there is a statement which clearly says that this has surprised few people because most of them have thought that with the reforms coming into picture, the banks would perform better, and hence when the non-performing assets did not improve, it surprised people that in spite of reforms the performance has not improved. Hence the appropriate answer is C. In question 25, saying considering the following statement with reference to a passage, some priority sectors are weak sectors that result in large volumes of non-performing loans. Finance Ministry is concerned about the Indian banking sector. So if you actually look at the earlier definition of priority sector, there are sectors where banks were forced to lend with no clear guarantees that the loans would be returned, and hence they kind of redefined the priority sector definition. Now, among the two choices here, which of the above statements can be correctly concluded from the bank? Statement 2 is obviously wrong. I mean, it looks ridiculous. So statement 1 is the most appropriate answer. So the correct answer is 1. The government has redefined priority sector lending, yet it remains a problem in the Indian banking sector. That's very obviously the purport of the passage. It's still vulnerable to change in interest rates. This is a very this is a statement that you cannot conclude from the passage. It may or may not be, but it has got nothing to do with vulnerability with respect to change in interest rates. So the conclusion that you can get is state choice 1. According to the passage, what are the reasons for low profitability in the Indian banking sector? So if you actually remember the passage, it says profitability has been hurt because of banks' autonomy to lend the way they want. So obviously banks lack the choice to lend to whomever they want because they had to kind of keep away part of the loans and lend it to a priority sector where the probability of getting back the money was not very high. Hence, B is the correct answer. Here we have data about 8 people sitting on a circular table, P1 to P8. 3 of them are males and rest are females. So if we look at the females here, P6, P4, not P6, P4, P3 and P1 are females and the rest of them are all males. So we have P1, P3 and P4 who are females, and we have males who are P2, P5, P6, P7 and P8. Now we have got conditions that no two females are sitting next to each other. P4 is sitting, P6 is sitting between P8 and P2. P4 is sitting second to the left of P6. P3 is sitting between P5 and P2, and P1 is a female. So let's try to create the possibilities here. So going by the first condition, that P6 is sitting between P8 and P2, I've got an option of P6 sitting here, P2 here, P8 here, or you could have P6 here, P2 here and P8 here. The next condition is P4 is sitting second to the left of P6. So if P4 was sitting second to the left of P6, there is one possibility of P4 here. But in that case, this arrangement, you have P4 sitting here. The third condition is P3 sitting between P5 and P2. So if you actually see P3 sitting between P5 and P2, this second condition is not valid, because then P3 should be here next to P2 and P5 here. So now we are left with P7 and P1, and since the condition is that P7 is male and P1 is female and P4 is a female and P5 is a male, the only possibility that we have is P7 here and P1 here. So this is a sitting arrangement of all these 8 people, based on which you can answer the following. Who is sitting immediately to the left of P1? Immediately to the left of P1 is P5. Which of the following statements is definitely true? P6 is male and P7 is female. P6 is female and P7 is male. Both P6 and P7 are male. That we have straight away figured out from the first set of conditions. Who is sitting immediately to the left of P4? So the person who is sitting immediately to the left of P4 is P7. Who is sitting directly opposite to P7? Right? You could end up making a mistake here. Just be careful. So the appropriate answer is P2. Essentially, when you're talking about directly opposite, you cut them into, after P7, go 3 places to the left and then find out the person who is sitting next to that position. You could also do it if you go to the right. So after P7, move 3 places to the right and now see who is sitting in the next position. So either way you could get the answer as P2. This passage talks about how vitamin D is very essential for certain types of social behavior, how it impacts the social behavior, how it helps in structuring the wiring in the brain, and how it acts as a neurotransmitter. So let's look at the questions. Vitamin D affects social behavior because it is produced only in healthy children. This is obviously not the correct answer. As side effects, this obviously is again not the appropriate answer. Aids in the making of hormones that affect social behavior. This is directly given in the passage, and shapes the brain and shapes the structure of the brain. This choice D is a overwhelming choice in the sense that it is not shaping the structure. It's one of those things that helps in shaping the structure of the brain and its wiring. So the appropriate answer in this question would have been only choice C. Why is vitamin D considered important for health? It acts like a neurotransmitter. This is one of the functions. It has positive effect on a lot of medical conditions. Thus, if you look at the first few lines, it talks about how vitamin D is important, or it's gaining prominence from a range of health conditions, from depression to cancer. So this looks a likely choice. Let's look at the others. It has to be taken as a dietary intervention. If you look at the question and look at choice C, it looks a very irrelevant one. It helps in preventing autism. Just one of the things, whereas choice B is a far more global answer to this question. Hence the appropriate answer is choice B. In this data, we have been given a table where the acreage of rice, wheat, coarse cereals and pulses from the year 2005-2006 to 2012-2013 in million hectares. There are two questions based on this. The first one is, in which year was the total acreage the maximum? And the second was, what is the approximate absolute difference between the area under wheat cultivation and that under coarse cereal cultivation during the given period? So if I look at this data, the data suggests that rice is always 40 plus, wheat is always 20 plus, coarse cereal is always 20 plus, and pulses is always 20 plus. So if I were to compare the data for the years 2007, 2010, 11, 11, 12 and 11, 12, 13, I will just compare the values of the first three digits here, or rather the last three digits here, and then we'll just add up those last three digits to get the different numbers. So let me do that for 2007-2008. It's 3.91 plus 8.04 plus 8.48 plus 3.63, and this works out to be approximately equal to a little more than 24. Now if I come down to 2010-11 and compare this with 2011-12, by visual inspection I can see that 2011-12 is about plus 1.4 more than 10-11. It is plus 0.65 for wheat. It is minus, let me say this is almost minus 1.3 approximately, and then we have, this is minus 0.06. So if you actually look at the net value, 2011-12 is obviously more than 2000. So I'm not even going to calculate for 2010-11. Similarly, if I compare 2011-12 with that of 2012-13, I see that 2011-12 for rice it is almost 1.5 more. For wheat it is about 0.25 more. For coarse cereal it is about plus almost 1.7 more, and for pulses too it is more. So in fact we don't need to check for 2012-13. So I am not going to check for 2011-12-13. So if there is a choice, the choice is between 11-12 and 7-8. So let's now add up for 11-12. 3.97, let me take it as approximately 4, 9.9 as almost 10, 14, this is 6.4, that is 20.4, and you can see very clearly that this is in excess of 24. So we have, this is in excess of 24. So we know that from the given choices 2011-12 is the most appropriate answer. So for question number 34, the correct answer is 11-12. Now let's look at what was the approximate absolute difference between the area under wheat cultivation and that under coarse cereal cultivation during the period. So we have to now check these two columns here. This is one column and we have the other column here. So I will do the same difference method while solving these questions. So if I look at coarse cereal vis-a-vis wheat, here the difference is almost plus, let me call that almost 2.5. Here it is approximately 0.7, approximate 0.45. Here it is minus 0.3. Then you have minus 0.8, minus 1.6. Then you have minus 3.5, and then you have minus 5. So if you actually try to add up all these values, this values is close to 10, right? And in fact a little less than 10. So I am not going to actually add these values. So if you look at your choices here, the choices are 7.5, 1, 16 and 17.5, and we are asked to find out the absolute difference. So I am, without even calculating, I am going to mark 7.5 as the answer. So it's important to remember that at times you don't have to do a actual calculation, do an estimation, and you are likely to be the answers. And estimation works really well when your choices are fairly far apart. In this question, we have been given the percentages of the bank notes that have been printed by the Reserve Bank in 2012-2013, and we got different denominations and their percentages. We are asked to find out what is the total value of the denominations of 10, 20, 15, 100 put together as a percentage of 500 and 1000. So I will use the principle of weighted averages here. So if we want to look at the weights of each of these denominations, this is nothing but 0.3, that is 30% into 10, which is equal to 3. Similarly, for the next one we have 0.15 into 20, that is 3. For the next we have 0.12 into 5, that is 6. For the next we have 0.18 into 100, that is 18. Then we have 0.16 into 15, that is 80. Sorry, this is 80 here. And then for 1000 rupees we have 0.09 into 1000, that is 90. Now if we have to find out what is the value of these denominations, it is 3 plus 3 plus 6 plus 18, that is 30, as a percentage of 80 plus 90, that is 170 into 100. And you know, 30 as a percentage of 17 is approximately equal to 17%. Hence, you find the answer is 17, close to 17.5%, and hence the appropriate answer for our question is choice A. This passage is an extract from the Child Protection Act, and here you find that this passage talks about how certain elements in the Act uh, give the role of police to be the protectors of child who is going through an investigative process. It talks about provisions of medical examination, how it has to be conducted, how any judicial uh, trial has to be conducted in camera, and how to make the entire process child friendly so that the child does not get victimized. And it also talks about certain time frame in which the child abuse case needs to be disposed of, and such other things. So let's look at the questions that follow this. Which of the following can be inferred from about the act mentioned in the passage? So there are four choices here. So it aims to protect children from sexual offences. We are talking about the act itself. It aims to protect children from sex trafficking, which is a very specific case. There is no talk of trafficking anywhere. It aims to protect children from judicial powers. This almost looks like a negative uh, implication of the act. So this cannot be my answer. It aims to protect child welfare committees. This is a very irrelevant choice. So among the choices that we have, the most appropriate choice is going to be choice A. Now, there are several various provisions in the Act that cater to different aspects of the welfare of sexually abused children. Which of the following benefits can a sexually abused child expect from the Act? Medical examination involving minimal discomfort. This is very clearly specified. Successful resolution of the case in at least 1 year. In fact, the Act talks about disposal of the case must be done within 1 year. So it's not about at least 1 year. Compensation amount that will cover the child's education living expenses. That's not what is mentioned here. It talks about amount of compensation to be paid to a child who has been sexually abused so that his money can be used for child's medical treatment and rehabilitation, not about child's education living expenses. So the appropriate answer in this case is choice A. According to the Act mentioned in the passage, who among the following will be held accountable for violating? If you look at it, uh, CWC for not being able to find, that is not true. Child psychologist who speaks on behalf of the child, not true. A judge who orders the child to testify via video link once again to make the case clearer, definitely not the case. So in fact, there's a very clear thing which says that the case has to be reported to CWC within 24 hours. So choice D is obviously the most appropriate answer. According to the Act, which of the following services can the child avail of? Right? Trusted person, that very clearly says if parent is not available, and then assistance from a language interpreter, so that the child understands or goes through the entire process without too much of a. So the appropriate answer in this will be choice C. With reference to the passage, consider the following provisions listed make it imperative for the victimized child's parents. It doesn't say that, it says one trusted person has to be there. So choice 1 is not correct. During medical examination, sex of child is taken into account while ensuring that they undergo the same with minimal emotional trauma. So it very clearly talks about how if the child is a male child or a female doctor has to be there in order to make sure that the child does not go through a trauma. So the appropriate answer in this case is choice 2. This was a rather easy passage, and I think all of you should have been able to do it. This is a case of Allahabad High Court giving orders to the UP government to transfer the SSP Kanpur uh, following a junior doctor strike uh, in the GSV Medical College in Kanpur, which actually spread over to the entire UP. So let's look at questions. The causes for death, as mentioned in the passages. Now, if you actually look at the four choices, lathi charging did not lead to death. We are talking about death in the hospitals. C is obviously not the correct answer. So make a correction in this. The correct answer, correct choice in this case has to be choice B and not choice C. So the doctors not turning up on duty or the strike was the reason for the deaths is the more appropriate answer and not choice C. Which of the following is most likely reason for the transfer of SSP Kanpur? You would be stuck between choice C and choice D. So the medical services going for strike had nothing to do with transfer of SSP. Police did not support medicos when they were being attacked by. It's not a question of support, it's about the intervention of police. The police not only did not intervene, they beat up the students and instead of stopping the supporters of MLA from beating up the medicos, they were a part of that scheme. Hence, choice D seems more appropriate than choice C. Strict action was not taken against police. So, one could actually get stuck between choice C and choice D, and choice D is the more appropriate answer in this. In this question, we got 5 ships which are reaching their destinations on 5 different days and are also departing from the respective ports on 5 different days. So we got a set of conditions, and let's try to create the table using these conditions that are given. So let me call the ships as A, and we have the days as Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We have the first data which says none of the 5 ships reached its destination on the same day of a week on which it had left the port. So basically your destination, your departure and arrival cannot be on the same day. Biscaglia, which left after Desabla and Craigenglet reached its destination on Tuesday. So the destination, let me say B, arrival at its respective destination is on, let's say circle stands for arrival and square for departure. So B reached its destination on Tuesday. A left on Tuesday. So A left on Tuesday and it arrived its destination on Wednesday. So A's arrival is on Wednesday. E, which left the port on Monday, reached its destination on Friday. E left on Monday. We said departure is square and it reached its destination on Tuesday, on Friday. Okay, we also have the data that B, the departure of B is happened after C and D. Now let's look at the departures. B could not have departed on Monday because C and D must precede B, so it couldn't have departed on Tuesday either, neither on Wednesday, because they cannot be departures of C and D either on Monday or Tuesday. So C and D have to be between Wednesday and Thursday, which implies the departure of B should definitely be on Friday. So we know that B has arrived at its destination on Tuesday and departed on Friday. Now let's look at the questions. The question number 44 says C reached its destination on which day? Now if you look at C's arrival must be either on Monday or it must be on Thursday. So the appropriate answer to this question is either B or C. So for this question the appropriate answer is either B or C. The next question is, which of the following statements are definitely true? C left the port on Thursday. C left the port on Thursday. This is not definitely true. D reached its destination on Thursday. D's departure. Did D reach on Thursday? We can't be sure about that. B left the port after A, which is definitely true because B left on Friday whereas A left on Tuesday. Hence, the appropriate answer for this question is only 3. B left the port on which day? We know that B departed on Friday, right? If you actually go back to this, B departed on Friday, the square on Friday corresponding to the row B. So the appropriate answer in this case is Friday. If D left the port before C, then which of the following is the correct order in which the ships from Monday to Friday? So let's go and kind of fill up the departure for D and B. If D left before C, that's what the data is saying. If D, so among the departures we've got departures for C and D not clear, and if D left before C, it must mean that D left on Wednesday and C on Thursday. Now if you look at the arrival of C cannot be on Thursday, so it has to be necessarily on Monday, in which case we are left with D arriving on Thursday. So in this case the right sequence would have been C first, then we have A second, rather uh, B second, then we have third is A, then we have fourth is D, and then we have fifth is Friday. Hence, the appropriate option which satisfies this is choice C. So in this question we have to find out what is the value that occupies the cell marked by the question mark. Now if you look at the trend, if I look at the first row is 8 into 3 minus 12, that is equal to 12, which is the first cell multiplied by the second cell minus the third cell in the first row. You can see that the same thing is valid in the second row and also the third rows. I have 5 into 6 minus 12 is equal to 18. Similarly, we have got in the third row 4 into 3 minus 4, which is equal to 8. So our last row by the same logic must be 6 into 2 minus 2, which is equal to 10. Hence the appropriate answer is. This is a question of physics. If a stone is thrown in upward direction from the earth, then which of the following graphs represents the relation between the velocity of the stone from the time of throw to just before striking the ground? Now, one thing is very obvious, that as the stone goes up, which means as it progresses over time, it must obviously reach a velocity 0 at some point. So it cannot be this answer, neither can be this answer, because before it gets to the maximum velocity, the in fact the velocity, this is more like even the magnitude, right? It kind of reaches the top, becomes 0, and then subsequently as it comes down it picks up speed. So an appropriate y coordinate should actually have been here. Instead of velocity, it should have been speed. Those who have actually identified this error, you get marks for that. Now look at the data that we have. In one case, the velocity is changing as a quadratic form, whereas in the other case it's going in a linear fashion. And since the acceleration due to gravity is constant, right, over short distances, we'll find that the appropriate answer has to be a linear one, and hence B is the correct option. This is a simple case of percentages. We have to find out what is 24% of that number, which is 60% less than, which means if it is 60% less than a certain number, it must be 40% of the number. So I am going to write 0.24 into 40% of. So not 60% less than is equivalent to 40% of a number that is 50% less than 500. 50% less than 500 is equivalent to saying 50% of 500. So this is 250. 0.4 into 250 gives me 100, and this gives me 24. Hence the correct answer is 24, D. Raman bought a cow for 12,000 rupees and sold it to Radhe at a profit of 8. Now remember, 8.34% is approximately equal to 1 by 12. So if he sold it for a profit of 8.34%, he sold it for a profit of 1 by 12 of 12,000, which is the profit must be equal to 1,000 rupees. Hence he must have sold the cow for rupees 13,000. Radhesh sold the cow to Dinkar for 12,000 rupees, which means he made a loss of 1,000. which is equal to 1 by 13th. Loss is 1 by 13 is cost price, 1 by 13th of his cost price, and 1 by 13 is equivalent to a percentage of approximately 7.7%. Hence the appropriate answer to this question is. In this question we have a man traveling from Mumbai to Goa. Let's call this as Mumbai. So going all the way from Mumbai to Goa via Pune. He travelled from Pune to Goa at twice the speed at which he travelled from Mumbai to Pune, and he took twice the time that he took from Mumbai to Pune. So if he took time t here, he must have taken time 2t here. The distance between Mumbai and Pune is 150 kilometers. So this is 150 kilometers. And the travel time was 3 hours. Hence, it must have taken 6 hours here. And we are talking about twice the speed. 150 kilometers in 3 hours implies 50 kilometers per hour. Hence, the speed here, let me say this is 50 kilometers per hour, whereas the speed here should have been 100 kilometers per hour. So the distance that you would have covered will be 600 kilometers. So if we want to find out what is the average speed over the entire journey, total time distance covered is 750 kilometers, 150 plus 600, and the total time taken is 9 hours. This approximately equal to 83.33 kilometers per hour. Now this is a question on, it's a fairly easy question. Abraham can complete a work in 10 days. So Abraham takes 10 days to do a work. And he left after 4 days, which means 6 days of work is left. 6 days of work is left. And he has been replaced by Jacob, who is twice as efficient, which means he does work at twice the speed. So obviously it means that if Abraham takes 6 days to do the remaining work, Jacob must take only 3 days because he is twice as fast. Hence the appropriate answer to this question is A. This is also a fairly easy question. 2 apples and 5 mangoes costed 220 rupees, whereas 5 apples plus 2 mangoes costed 214 rupees. So we see that 7 apples and 7 mangoes will cost 434 rupees, which means 1 apple plus 1 mango will cost 434 by 7 or 62 rupees. This is again a very simple question. You must know that if you have a set of arithmetic terms in arithmetic progression, the sum of the terms is equivalent to the middle term. If I call the middle term can be one single term or 2 terms depending on how many terms are there. So in this case we have odd number of terms, that is 5, hence there will be only one middle term. So the sum of all the terms will be equal to, in this case m into 5, which we know is equal to 30. Hence the middle term, which happens to be the third term, must be equal to 6. When you really don't need to work, you can straight away mark the answer. We have a triangle, that's a ABC is a right angle triangle in which angle B is 90 degrees. So let me first draw a right angle triangle. A right angle triangle ABC. If the length of the hypotenuse is 13 centimeters and the lengths of AB and AC are integers, so this has to become a Pythagorean triplet, and we know in Pythagorean triplets the combination is 5, 12 and 13. Then what is the in radius? So area of this triangle is equal to half of 12 the base into 5, which is equal to 30 centimeters squared. And we also know that the area of a triangle is given by half into in radius into the semi perimeter. So the semi-perimeter in this case is nothing but 30. So we'll find, we know the semi-perimeter is nothing but 30. So from this we will get the value of R as 2 centimeters. Hence the correct answer is. Again, you need to know a property of circles to solve this question. PT is a tangent and PA, PB is a secant. Right? PB is referred to as secant. There's a property which says PT squared will be equal to PA into PB. You can actually prove it using similarity of triangles. And from this we'll get, if PA is X, then PB will be equal to 4X from the data that is given provided to us here. Hence PT will be equal to 2X. So the given required ratio is PT is to PB will be equal to 1 is to 2. This passage talks about the concept of karma and how its interpretations lead to different ways of ascribing punishments and rewards. Which of the following statements cannot be inferred from the passage? If you look at the 4 statements, reward and punishment are superficially related to karma, though if you actually look at the first line itself, it says there's no real relationship with such things as karma, right? Some people might blame it on all karma, that the passage definitely says happens. Bad karma does not exist. So in the passage it talks about there's nothing called as a good karma or a bad karma, and karma is neither good or bad, which is valid because in this passage it is talking about karma being neutral. So the most appropriate option in this case is choice A. According to the passage, why is an apparent punishment not a result of bad karma? So if you actually read the 4 choices, it says that sometimes when you go through difficult times or bad times, which kind of is linked to bad karma, it also ends up in your advancement, or in other words, a bad time could also be a stepping stone to success. So if you read the rest of the choices, I think almost all of them you can straight away eliminate. This is a fairly simple question. Suna is starts walking north from her home. She walks north. She goes 50 meters. Then she turns right. She goes 40 meters. Then again she turns right, walks 50 meters, which implies that she is almost, right now, she is to the east of where she started off. This is 40 meters away. And now she turns left and walks 30 meters. So in effect, since this is going to be a straight line, ABC will be a straight line, you find that at the end she is 70 meters to the east of where she started off. This again is a fairly simple question. Pointing to a lady, Nihal said to Neha, the only sister of the brother of my wife is obviously his wife. We're talking about Nihal's wife is the sister-in-law of the brother of that lady. So there's a lady. So Nihal's wife is the sister-in-law of the brother of lady. So Nihal must be having a brother and also a sister. So the lady happens to be the sister. So you can see that Nihal's wife is the sister-in-law of the brother of the lady. And how is the lady's husband related to Nihal. Obviously the lady's sister's husband is going to be the brother-in-law. Hence the appropriate answer is B. In a code language, could is written as BMJ, BMTJC, and margin as LYQEHL. How will modeling be written as? So if you actually look at the two words code, COULD, and then we look at BMTJC. So it goes by a sequence of 1. After B you have C, M, N, O. So this is a 2 away. T के बाद you get U, J, K, L, 2, C, D, 1. So it's going by a sequence of 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Similarly, you try out with L, Y, Q, E, H, L, and then margin. You will find that the same format of L after L you have M, after Y you have Z, and then you come back to A, Q, R. So you have the same sequence 1, 2, 1, 2. So in this question we have to look for modeling can be written in the same code as. So if you apply the same rule and check out, you will find that the appropriate answer is A. Gumran starts traveling northwest. So let's say that Gumran is here. He starts traveling northwest. So at 45 degrees, if you say this is west, after traveling for 14 kilometers, he traveled 14 kilometers, she turns east and travels 28 kilometers. So let's say 28 kilometers, and then she turns southeast, so and then travels 14 kilometers. So if you're talking about southeast, it's going to be something like again 45 degrees here. So what you end up getting is actually a parallelogram, which means this is going to be 28. Finally, she turns east and travels 8 kilometers. So from here, she is traveling 8 kilometers. Hence, from the starting point to the ending point, she is going to be 36 kilometers away. Hence, the appropriate answer is A. A cube is thrown 4 times and the outcomes that transpired in the 4th rows are shown below. So let's look at the case here. We have, if I turn this, I'm going to get the 4th cube here. So which implies that this part is plus. Let's also look at the dollar sign. The dollar sign has got one common face when percentage is at the top with plus. So we have a plus here and we have a percentage here, which means this has got to be the dollar sign. Hence you will find that the one that is opposite to the dollar sign is O. In this question we have got 4 people, 4 companies, 4 sectors and 4 locations. We have to match all these parameters, and we got 5 conditions with us. So before we start solving it, let's try to organize this data and create a table. So I've got 4 people here, then I have B, then I have C, then I have D, and I have 4 companies or 4 locations rather. S1, I have S2, I have S3, and I have S4. Now let's look at the conditions. B works in a company whose head office is located in S3. So B obviously is working here, which means is not working in any of these. So let me kind of cut that out. At the same time, it also helps me cut out these things. The head office of C4, which belongs to insurance sector, is located in S2. So S2 is insurance and it is C company C4. The head office of company that belongs to IT sector is located in S1. So here I have D works in C2. D is working in C2. Okay. So let's say D here works in C2. A works in a company that belongs to the telecom sector. A works in telecom sector. So A is obviously working here because he is not working in insurance, neither is he working in IT. So this must be telecom. If this is telecom, it means that this has to be banking. So let me kind of cut out all the others now. B works in a company whose head office of C4, which belongs to insurance sector, is located in S2. And we have head office of company that belongs to IT sector is in S1. D works in C2. So D cannot be in banking sector, D cannot be in telecom sector. And since D works in C2, he cannot be working in insurance sector, hence this has to be C2. So D is working in insurance sector. So this goes off, which implies C must be working in insurance sector. So this is all the data that we have based on the conditions. Now based on this, let's try to answer which of the following is definitely true. B works in C1? No. We know that B is either working. If we look at this data, this is either C1 or C3, in which case this becomes C3 or C1. So B works in banking sector, that's absolutely true. B works in a company whose head office is located in S4, no. B works in C2 is also no. Hence the appropriate option for this question is B works in the banking sector. How many of the following terms are definitely true? The head office of C2 is located in S1. So let's go back. Head office of C2 is in S1. True. Head office of the company in which A works is located in S3. A works in telecom, which is in S4. The head office of the company that belongs to telecom is in S2. Wrong. And the head office of C3 is located in S1. C3 we are not sure whether it is in rather, C3 we know for sure is definitely not in S1. It's either S3 or S4. So, among the given choices, there's only one statement which is correct, and that is statement B. The next three passages are very simple. I think it's almost direct questions. The first passage is talking about Google's Project Ara, which was initiated by Motorola. Talks about customizable devices for consumers. Project Ara is a project started by Motorola. So for example, if you look at the line here, Project Ara was announced by Motorola with the aim of making modular phones so the appropriate answer is, it's a direct straight answer, started by Motorola. Project Ara phones are customizable because there is a choice of key specifications and hardware. The parts are detachable. So C looks a very ridiculous choice, and in fact D is the most appropriate among the four choices. The next passage is about this person called Alyosha, who was a younger brother. He was nicknamed the Pot because of many things. If you actually read through the passage, not difficult. It's fairly simple. And first question was Alusa was nicknamed the pot because he was short, he was fat, he broke a pot, he bought a pot, and obviously when you read the passage, you realize that children started making fun of him because he broke a pot. The children teased him because of his large nose, right, which stuck out like a god from a tree. That's why children teased him. Reading and writing was difficult for Eliezer because he was not dumb, he had no books, but he had to kind of help his father, so he did not have time to study. Now, the third passage is about uh, a situation, right, where Susie and her friends end up playing the game, end up becoming detectives. What is the mystery referred to in relation to the game of Red Indians? The mystery is about the identity of a burglar here. So this is a very fairly simple one. Why couldn't Colin or Jack identify the strange man? Because when they saw him um jumping over the wall, uh, of course they didn't know him, but the fact that they could not identify the strange man was because they happened to see only his head. Hence, the appropriate choice was is choice C. Who helped Colin and Jack investigate the robbery at the manor? If you look at the last line, you will see that this answer is a fairly straightforward one. The gardener helped them in their investigations. So, for the next 6 questions, you are expected to indicate an appropriate response based on a case that is given. The first one is you and your friends take a loan for a business venture that you jointly operate, and you're now paying monthly installments which is split up equally among yourselves. One of the members from your group did not pay his share last month and you paid the installment on his behalf. He now says he might not be able to pay it this month as well as he is undergoing a severe financial crisis. He has been a very close friend of yours for many years. You yourself are not very well off and have other pressing financial obligations. Let's say what are the options that you have? Flatly refuse to pay his share of monthly installment. That could be a very abrupt, non-cooperative option that you have. Share your limitations and reason with him to give at least half of his share. So you're actually going a little halfway to kind of make sure that he pays up. Call up his wife and ask about his financial status. That I think is a very inappropriate thing to do. He would rather want to talk to him straight and then find out what it is and not through his wife. That also breaks a lot of trust. Tell him that you are paying for him for the moment, but that you would need the entire amount back within a certain period of time. This is about being clear, and there's a clarity in this communication. So, among the choices that you have, probably the two best options that you could have chosen could have been either choice B or choice D. This is the second situation. You're a contractor who has undertaken the responsibility of overseeing the construction of a mansion at a posh location in the city. The construction is on the verge of completion. One morning, you come to the site to discover an altercation taking place between your consigned laborers and the people living in the vicinity of the mansion. One neighbor alleges that one of your laborers got drunk and verbally abused his daughter. The accused laborer vehemently denies the allegation, saying it is just a ploy to disrupt work as they are jealous of how large the mansion is. You would. We have four choices. Mildly scold the laborer in front of the neighbors, ask him to apologize to the neighbors, assure them that it will not be repeated again, enter into an argument with the neighbors and tell them to back off as you know the laborers well and trust them blindly. Ignore whatever is happening as the mansion is close to being built anyways. See, C and D look like options that you would definitely not do, right? You wouldn't want to get into argument. It's not going to lead anywhere, and you can't obviously ignore it. So there has to be some action. So among the choices that you have, I think uh, both options A and B can ensure that at least there is some smoothness because the thing is on the verge of completion. You would want to kind of make sure that it is settled in as amicable manner as possible. So choice A and B are possibly the best options that you have here. Similarly, you look at the options here. You work on a lab, somebody gives you a protocol, your boss gives you a protocol, it kind of backfires, and uh, one of the senior boss is very strict. One of your seniors gives you a protocol, it backfires, and your boss is going to visit you soon. What would you do? You have four options. Confront the senior as to why he deliberately gave you a wrong protocol. You can't be sure that he has given you a deliberately wrong protocol. Uh, and the word is deliberate here, right? You can't go and you could possibly ask him whether the protocol that he gave was something that was flawed. Start playing politics, that you would not do. Definite no, no. So I'm just cutting it out. Accept that your experiment failed, knowing that your boss may reprimand you. I think at the end of the day, you need to obviously own up your mistake. I think this is an appropriate thing to do. Submit the written protocol along with the results of the experiment. Communicate your doubts about the senior. I'm not sure whether you would want to communicate your doubts about the senior, but the concept of the fact that you're going to give a written protocol along with the results is there for somebody to definitely make a judgment on. So I think given the options, these are probably the best options to look at. You are an independent candidate for a municipal election with no support from any political party whatsoever. You have been born and raised in the constituency that you are representing and have full support of its residents who are in desperate need of a good leader. Another person representing a national level party is contesting against you. He feels insecure due to the widespread support you enjoy within the constituency. He fabricates a case of corruption against you, causing people to start doubting your capabilities. What would you do? And this looks like a real situation, and given the context that we are in, elections just got finished. I think this is a very important, very relevant context. So there are four options. Start a campaign to malign him back in order to get attention away from yourself. Preserve your squeaky clean image. Invite him to openly debate. B looks obviously a very and ask him to justify. So this is definitely yes. Threaten him to retract his allegation or face serious consequences, though you may not actually mean to harm him. Focus on. So the other thing is about you are obviously going to tell him that he better um either he makes a choice of retracting his image or face serious consequences, though you may not actually mean it. So when you don't mean it, I think it might not be the right thing to do. Um Maybe I think a better option would have been to filing a case, or but you have to win the election now. So I think one is the best option is to invite him to a debate, and then second option is to now focus on your electoral campaign despite being maligned. So I think you need to continue with your job. So you probably will have to continue with this, assuming that this is a part and parcel of any political process. You have recently opened a restaurant in one of the famous markets. You come to know through the shopkeepers around your restaurant that you have to pay a fixed monthly amount to the beat police on, right? And then uh, within a week of your opening, a beat constable comes to collect the amount. You pay the amount as you are keen to avoid any hindrances, and then a week later, another guy comes and demands the monthly payment. You tell him payment has been made. What would you do in such a situation? First choice is negotiate with the beach constable about the amount to be paid. So I think you're trying to redo it all over again, which you would want to avoid. Do nothing as you already given bribe once, which is a legal offense. Approach the market as you need to solve the problem. So you can't obviously be opting for choice B. Now let's look at C and D. Approach the market association of shopkeepers for help. Maybe there's somebody there who is out to help you. Along with the shopkeepers willing to accompany you or submit a written complaint to the SHO regarding the wrong practice. So I think there is some sense of legality, some sense of uh, fairness in C and D. So probably the two best options that you have is C and D. You have recently shifted to a new society. Every night you hear noises from the flat above you which seem like someone hitting somebody or something. You get to know that there is a couple occupying the flat above you and the wife is seen out only on rare occasions. During discussions with few other neighbors, you realize that others have also heard the noises and share your doubts about domestic abuse faced by the wife. What would you do? First and foremost thing obviously is, see, might be tempted to look at the option A, along with your neighbors confront the husband about the domestic abuse. Uh, this is a possible thing. Inform an NGO. This is definitely something that you should do. File a police complaint about the domestic abuse. So the choice could be between should I do A first and then C later, or should. So given a choice, I think if you want to keep your distance, right, you need to inform an NGO, and if it still doesn't work out, maybe file a police complaint. So among the choices, probably B and C are the most appropriate. So that brings us to the end of the analysis. Make sure that you do your own analysis and get all your mistakes corrected. Thank you.